Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Market news from the food world. Hey everybody, how do you go about judging the color of the foods that you buy? There's a new article in the IFT magazine that brings some sometimes surprising information to this whole idea. Egg yolks, right? The color of the raw beef or pork that you buy, even honey. Beer and wine are in this category. So let's just take a quick look at this. We'll start with the April 2023 Food Technology magazine, but then we're going to look at Lab Roots and the U.S. Department of Agriculture as well. The IFT piece says that color preferences for raw animal products vary based on where you are in the world, according to an article in the Journal of Food Science. A review of 40 studies from around the world looked at consumer preferences for raw beef, pork, poultry, honey, milk, and eggs. They noted that most people tend to prefer foods with higher color value, with more vivid colors, because they associate that with freshness. Looking a little deeper, though, based on region, there are different preferences. For example, consumers in North America and Europe prefer light red to dark pink in their raw pork, while Asian consumers prefer a dark red color that they see as potentially more tender. And there are some other differences for U.S. consumers. Apparently, people in the U.S. prefer chicken eggs with white eggshells, and that's different compared to surveys from around the world where consumers tend to prefer brown eggshells. The researchers did note, though, that the color of the egg yolk seemed to be what was most important to most consumers as far as a marker of freshness when it comes to chicken eggs. For beef, across the globe, people like light red or pink in color, and we're going to talk about this in just a second from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they prefer dark golden, yellow, or amber color in their honey. We're going to talk about that in just a second here, too. Now, for you science nerds, there is a sponsored piece that just came out on Lab Roots about a week ago. This just talks about spectroscopy. It's just a deeper way to use color to assess the quality of foods. It says food and beverage analysis requires methods to assess the physical and sensory attributes, the nutritional components, the ingredients, contaminants, composition. Both ultraviolet and visible spectroscopy is fast. It's not destructive. It requires minimal, test prep and that sort of thing across a broad range of liquids. By shining a specific color of light through a liquid, we can verify whether it's within specs. For example, thin liquids, beer, wine, spirits, also sticky, thick liquids like honey or palm oil. This is what caught my eye because we were just talking about how people like honey a little on the darker side. Honey color is linked to its floral source, mineral content, and storage condition. We know that because of some of the spectroscopy. They shine a specific wavelength of light, it's 560 nanometers for those who care, and the amount that gets absorbed gives us some of this information. I bring this up at all because I just want people to understand that there is science and a quantifiable way to use color, and it's really pretty industry standard when they're looking at the quality of foods. But let's turn just for a moment to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They also talk about color. Here they have a question. This is from just about a month or two ago, March 23rd of this year. What determines the color of meat? It says proteins, the age of the animal, the amount of exercise it gets, and the storage of the meat determines the color. Myoglobin, and some of you may have heard of that before, myoglobin is similar to hemoglobin, but it's in muscle tissue. That's the protein responsible for the majority of the red color in meat. So it's purplish in color. When it mixes with oxygen, though, it becomes oxymyoglobin, and it becomes very bright red. So you open the package, if it was vacuum sealed, for example, it gets exposure to the air, and it would become much brighter. This little piece also says older animals and those who exercise more have more myoglobin in their muscles, so they'll be darker in color. Of course, there'll be some variation there. I mean, it is curious, right, that the more exercise muscles would have more myoglobin, just like you might see a human athlete, an endurance athlete, getting more oxidative ability. So, yeah, there's some variation, even from the same animal. But we have one last little tidbit as you're about to slap some meat on the grill if you're here in the United States on this holiday weekend, and that's about the storage. This is, again, from the USDA. This is from October of 2022 actually, it says after beef has been refrigerated for about 5 days, it may turn brown. That's due to oxidation, some of these chemical changes in that myoglobin protein. The myoglobin is not providing all of the number of grams of protein you see on the label, right? That comes from any variety of muscle proteins. But this is a normal change that happens in the refrigerator. It does say beef that has turned brown during extended storage could be spoiled, of course, have an off odor, or be tacky to the touch, and that should not be used. That might seem a little obvious, but again, it ties into this whole color thing that we've been talking about. I mean, even storage in the freezer can make it be a little bit darker, a little less bright as far as redness when we're talking about here the raw beef. But that's all we have for you here on this holiday weekend. Thanks for everybody who left a review or comment occasionally on our YouTube backup and that sort of thing. That's appreciated. Our season 1 of these quick fire sort of on your commute 10-minute-ish episodes is actually winding down. We're closing in on episode 100. That's hard to believe, but we've done this on a daily basis. There may be some slight changes in the format moving forward. Lastly, check out nutritionradio.org on Spotify. Again, you can check out the YouTube backup at Lawnman07. We are starting to put up monthly episode, full-length feature episodes of Iron Radio on the days that I can actually work with those guys. And the hope is after, about 14 years, that a little bit of synergy between these sister shows can actually reinvigorate, get the word out. There's such a glut of podcasts these days, as so many know, so we really appreciate you. And we'll see you next time. The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.